Hello everyone, this is Food is a Conversation, Alumni Edition, session 63. Oh my god, I'm not so well prepared as always. Anyway, above 60, that's for sure. And while I'm waiting for my guest today, let me tell you what are these sessions about. We are hosting our ecosystem members who attended any of the educational programs organized so far. Let them be summer schools or the Food Innovation Master Program I myself attended, and the Food and Climate Shaper bootcamps, what Emily attended. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm good. I actually made already a mistake, very epic mistake, that I forgot the number of the session we are hosting today, but I was right, 63. Anyway, not so important information. So you will listen to us if your time allows for like 20-30 minutes. It will be a casual conversation, so you will get to know Emily more, and also the reason how we connected and how she became part of the future food ecosystem. And I encourage everyone, please post your questions if you have any, and we will try to accommodate it during the session. But if you don't have the time to stay until the very end, no worries, because we will post it on IGTV afterwards and also on our YouTube channel next to the other 62 sessions what we already hosted. So if you run out of Netflix options what to watch over the weekend, I can highly recommend you to watch the series of the Future Food Alumni. So now, without any further ado, let me hand over to Emily. Please introduce yourself. Tell us where you are dialing in from and how did you end up on the bootcamp last winter?
Yeah, so my name is Emily Schostack. I am a food systems educator. I'm dialing in from New Jersey. I live in northern New Jersey, right in the New York City area. And like I said, I'm a food systems educator. And the reason I actually ended up taking the boot camp, or the way I found it, was because I was looking for a job. Like a lot of people in the food industry, last March, I wasn't working and I was poking around trying to find somewhere that I could work or somewhere that I could place my skills. And when I found the boot camp, I thought it was interesting because all the curriculum development I've ever done was always for in-person teaching. So the main reason that I actually took the boot camp was to see how this content that I have spent my academic career and my professional career to committing to doing in person would translate to a digital setting. So instead of applying for any sort of job, I actually ended up taking the boot camp instead.
Oh. Ah, instead of applying, we lost you for a moment with some connectivity issue. So the final sentence was instead of applying,
I
and we
actually
didn't.
participated instead.
Okay, very good, very good. So how was the experience, this digital learning experience, and what were the main learnings and takeaways for you?
It was really great. I actually, so I do have a master's degree in food studies, and what I really liked about the boot camp was I felt like it added an extra layer to my education. I'm born and raised in the US, I'm educated in the US, and my degree was very much focused on food systems problems in the United States. The program was very much integrated into the area that we were. And when we talked about policy, we were always talking about the USDA and the US government policy structures for food. So what I liked about the digital bootcamp was that it added this global layer that I felt like I was missing. I really enjoyed all of the different voices that came into the virtual room or to the table. And I liked learning about what different people were doing in different parts of the world. And the other thing that I really liked, so that global perspective was really great. But the other thing that I really liked was the ecosystemic thinking, the design thinking, and the prosperity thinking. So until that point, I had really been learning and talking mostly about systems thinking. I had one friend who had done her thesis on design thinking, and that was the first and only time I had heard of it. So I really liked having a chance to kind of deep dive into those topics a little bit more. And since the boot camp, I've been thinking about them a lot and how I can integrate them into my own work moving forward.
Amazing. So we had different activities along the digital bootcamp, and I always try to highlight the fact that although it's a digital platform, and unfortunately I only had the chance to meet you through a screen so far, but we also try to equip the participants with some tools so that they become active in their own ecosystems, like the local discoveries and also the climate supper. So do you want to tell me a bit about those two assignments, what you created for the bootcamp?
For sure. So when we did when I do food systems education a lot of the time, it's like this really big picture, this really big wicked problem. But what I liked about the digital boot camp and what I think is most effective for student engagement in general is contextualizing this information within your local environment. It makes it tangible. It makes it, for lack of a better word, digestible for participants. And it also inspires people to take action, which I think is really important. So that's what I really liked, those two components of the boot camp, because it took us out of the virtual classroom and forced us to interact with our own communities. And that was really great. So for my local discovery, I went to Montclair Community Farms, which is a small community garden where I live. And I had never been there. I'm in the town that I grew up in right now, and this was established after I graduated and went to university. So I had never had a chance to go there, and now I'm actually talking to them about working with them in the future, which I think is pretty amazing. And for the climate supper, I brought a friend along with me, a really good friend who works also in food. She works in food media, and she works at a completely different side of the industry from me. So a lot of what we talked about then was how food media portrays sustainability and what she thinks they could be doing to directly confront consumers or their readers with food systems problems, where she thinks they're doing well and what their shortcomings are and what she hopes for the future. So that was really interesting. We have those conversations in private a lot of the time, but it was fun to bring her to the climate supper and kind of expose her to this side instead of the other side. So I think it gave her a new perspective as well.
Exactly. So as you mentioned, you are educational program designer and you have different experiences with trainings and workshops and everything, and even curriculum design. Do you want to tell us a bit about these experiences and what have you built so far?
For sure. So I got into the food systems education side of things while doing my master's program. I got an internship at a school. I went to Chatham University in Pittsburgh, and I took an internship with a charter school called Environmental Charter School in the area. And what I did for them was they have their cultural literacy courses, and then they have what they call a culinary exploratory for students as well. And so that first stepping into curriculum design was I was linking the teachers for the cultural literacy class with the culinary teacher and helping to co-design a workshop that had these two topics come together. So for the sixth graders, they were learning about the history of Pittsburgh. So we did a project on cultural neighborhoods within the city, and they were split into groups and they had to research the history of those neighborhoods, and then in their culinary exploratory, they had to pick a dish that they felt was emblematic of that neighborhood and present the two together. For eighth graders, they were learning about the Atlantic slave trade. So we did a unit on the botanical and agricultural legacy of the Atlantic slave trade, focusing on things like rice and greens and beans and the skills and dishes that are now part of the African diaspora here in the United States. And it was the same idea. So they were split into groups, they picked a dish, they had to cook it, and then they had to present what they learned through their research in their other class as well. So that was my first step. From there, I continued to work with them and actually wrote my thesis with Environmental Charter School, designing a full food systems course for the high school level. And that was very much inspired by the research of David Meek and Rebecca Tarlow, who write about something called critical food systems education. And what that means is you're taking these larger problems, contextualizing them, and giving students the tools to directly impact the food system within their own local community. So that was a 1-year-long course that with an action project that extended into the next year. And they were still building the school at the time. So it was K-8, and then the high school was opening later. And so I really hope that they're still using it or that they're integrating it in any way at all. I tried really hard to make it so that it could be fit into other courses, so they could learn about some of it in environmental science and some of it in like an economics or history class. So I tried to make it really flexible and put a really strong emphasis on field trips, applied and experiential learning. I had them like making a podcast as a project so that they can think about not just what they're learning, but also how they can relay that information to other people and inspire action within their own community. Since then, I worked at Italy. I did professional training modules in collaboration with human resources for employees, as well as recreational culinary classes for students, or not students, adults and children. I did the whole kids program, which was so fun. And now I work with this woman, Natalia Ribby from Ladies of Restaurants in the UK as well. And we're helping her to get what she's calling the Ladies of Restaurants classroom off the floor later this year.
Amazing, very diverse portfolio. I have a question, especially regarding the eighth grader and what you developed for that school. They learned about history, they learned about different districts combined with food, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that it created actually a different learning experience, what made them understand the context way better? Because if I look at my history classes from the past, there was a book what we needed to go through by the end of the year, and that's how the teacher structured the class. So I'm not sure I would necessarily pass the high school exam at the end right now, because there was no connection where I could connect literature with history. I was missing already those contexts because the two teachers were not aligned and synced to go through the past on the same in the same pace. So how do you see adding these different tools and the food as a tool in the education, creating a completely different level of learning?
Yeah, so one of the really cool things about the school that I was working with was that students had the same teachers for every year that they were there. They were kind of in this unit where the teachers were always working together and collaborating, which I felt like was really beneficial for boosting retention and engagement. And teachers were always in communication with how the students were doing, and also like how they could be presenting information differently or improving. They were improving each other essentially in a lot of ways. Bringing in this culinary exploratory that's an instructor in a course that touched all the students. So that instructor is integrated into this cluster of teachers for these students. So what I liked about it was that I feel like when you're in 6th or 8th grade history, you're kind of just sitting in a room reading a book. And I've always said that tasting is a really great way to learn. And it gave students an opportunity to learn while also using their hands. I'm personally a very visual learner. A very tactile learner. I was an art major way back in the day. And so I never did super well just from reading. And what I think doing something like this, it's not only crossing disciplines, but it's meeting students who have different styles of learning where they're at, so that maybe they can retain information a little bit better. And also it forces them to think a little bit critically and do something fun. At that age, learning has to be fun, right? When you're in 6th or 8th grade. You're barely a teenager. It shouldn't be crazy serious yet. And if you're bored or disengaged, you're not going to retain any information. Learning should always be fun, actually. It should never be boring.
Yeah.
The answer.
I agree. So you also work for Illuminate Foods right now. I really would like the audience to know what the project is about and how do you see their role in the local community?
Absolutely. So Illuminate Food, it's something I fell into last summer again when I wasn't working. And I got in touch with the founder through a community friend. Or a family friend. Her name is Danielle Schwab. And what she was doing was she comes from a supply chain background. And when the pandemic hit, she saw a situation where lots of farmers all of a sudden had nowhere for their produce to go because restaurants were no longer buying it. So our primary product and source of revenue is we are buying local produce from our region, and it's different every week, and then we are selling that as a farm box to people who either are interested in local food, interested in not going to the grocery store, or interested in trying something new and trying something really delicious. So we do a mixture of produce, usually 8 to 10 produce items, as well as they get bread every week, eggs, milk if they want it, and cheese if they want it as well. We provide them with recipes to try to get people cooking. And there's a lot of this community aspect to it. We really try to get them to engage with us and share what they're cooking, inspire each other to get into the kitchen. And it's been really heartwarming. I think a lot of people prior to this weren't cooking all that much, right? We were so caught up in being so busy all the time. And all of a sudden you're at home. And I think that it's really encouraged people to try new foods, try new things, and also experience food in a really different way that's enjoyable, delicious, local, nutritious.
Yeah, and I see the variety. I mean, now you just listed what is in the box. All they need next week maybe some carbs like pasta or rice or legumes to cook
Yeah, we
along,
give
and then
them.
they
Yeah, we have
actually
beans in there sometimes. We do grains sometimes. Last week we got couscous for them and there's a pasta company in our area that uses local
mm,
grains to make dried pasta. So we've given them that before. We also have a local fresh pasta company that we use. And we do also have options for people to add on meat, tofu, other dried beans if they really like. We have some vegan sausages, some meat sausages. So we do try to have variety, and really if you work at it, you can make many meals out of stuff that we have, which I think is
yeah.
really fun for people. They're trying a lot of new stuff, which I think is pretty cool. I think they're a little sick of potatoes and squash right now, but asparagus is just around the corner.
Seasons.
So I keep telling them to hold on a little bit longer. And the farmers I've been speaking with, we should be getting asparagus in a few weeks, which will be great. And they'll welcome it with open arms.
Yes. So this is a project that was born through because of the ongoing pandemic. How do you see will the demand stay after things get normalized, or people will be able to go back to their busy lives? How what do you project?
That's something that we've been talking about a lot lately because we have seen some people. It's most of the people that buy boxes from us are doing it through a subscription basis, and they can do every week or every other week. And we have seen some people dropping down to every other week because they're going back to work, they're getting too busy.
Mhm.
And so what we're trying to do is actually work with some restaurants who are still struggling and offer some more prepared options as well. So maybe you get a farm box, but like this past week, it's St. Patrick's Day. Is that tomorrow? It's tomorrow. We had a chef in the area who was making a shepherd's pie in an aluminum disposable pan, and people can get that and they can just heat it up.
Nice.
Next week it'll be lasagna. We've done like meatballs, and we change it every week, but we try to give people a really quick and easy dinner option. And then also I write the email that they get with their farm box every week, and I give them so many recipes and ideas for not only how to make dinner fast and delicious, but also how to preserve things longer if
Mhm.
they're concerned about it going bad. So I do give them like fermentation tips. I give them canning recipes, even though I'm not sure that that's really what they want to be doing right now, but also storage tips, how to freeze things, and how to make your produce last as long as possible and get them maximize it. So don't throw away those beet tops, right? You can blanch them and freeze them and throw them into a stew later. It doesn't take very long if you're already at the stove, and it prevents waste, and it's really quick and easy green next time you need it. So I try to give them those tips, and I hope that the trend of staying home and cooking is around to stay. And in general, that it inspires people to stay home and, at least right now, stay home, cook, and enjoy this time with your family, and keep supporting local food in the future as well.
Definitely. And you know, I had this conversation recently with someone. So I am a supporter of a local initiative here who is curating bags of fresh produce, what would be surplus or basically wasted directly from farmers. And to be honest, it makes my life much easier because I don't need to go to the supermarket and make decisions. It was an interesting mindset shift for me because usually what did we do? We had recipes in mind, we went to the grocery store, and normally the same things ended up in your shopping basket because we are creatures of habit. So less of experimenting with other products. And but it's like all these brain work what I needed to put in write a shopping list, and like, oh my god, I forgot something. And now I get these bags, 3 kilo of whatever, surprise, and that is for a single household, it's enough for me for 2 weeks to actually have a very diverse diet.
Yeah.
I ate and created dishes what I didn't do before, and it's just that one click to get that bag, and yeah, it makes it way easier, I
Yeah,
feel.
I think it keeps it not only is, but not maybe not so much right now. I think I really feel bad every time I give them more potatoes. I love potatoes too, but it's a lot. But in the summer, they were getting so much fun stuff that maybe you wouldn't be seeing otherwise, like garlic scapes and kohlrabi, the stuff that
Mhm.
is not available at Whole Foods. And it's really good. And I think that even if people maybe go back to cooking less in the future, it doesn't mean that I hope that they don't change how they're buying their produce, and it inspires them to stick with the bounty of our region and enjoy it, what's in season at its peak ripeness. And it's so much more fun to cook and eat with than the stuff that you get at the grocery store. And I think I kind of like the element of surprise. I don't know if they do. They must. They keep doing it. But I don't know.
So, and may I ask, out of curiosity, how big of a team is working on the project? Because logistically, it's like collecting produce from multiple producers, a lot of sources, and then packaging and distributing. So, how big is the team?
We're a pretty small team. So it's myself, the founder, Danielle, and then we have a couple other people. There's 3 other people working on it, and then we have delivery drivers.
Okay.
So less than 10. We're a pretty
Wow.
small team, and we do a lot of it remotely, and then we pack it in a warehouse where we get everything delivered and we store it, and we are able to distribute it once a week.
Wow. Very nice. So I hope that maybe you can balance it out with also restaurants reopening in the future in case the B2C element will, the demand will reduce a tiny bit. So I have a final question, what I ask from everyone before the end of the conversation, and that's how your preferred food future looks like. Here you have 2 choices. Go with the utopistic version and don't think about barriers, or be more realistic knowing where we are right now and what are the boundaries we have.
For sure. There are so many things I think that I want for the food system in the future, but I think the big one that kind of covers a lot of it is that I want the right choice to be the easy choice. I think that right now we've created a system where it is cheaper, it is more obvious, or education has told us that the right thing to do is the one that is less sustainable, less nutritious, less in line with food sovereignty goals in the future. And it doesn't make any sense to me that when broccoli is in season here in New Jersey, that when I go to the grocery store, the one that's there is from California. And it's often less expensive. We do have farmers market, but say I'm a busy person who only has time to make one stop, and I also need a bunch of things at the grocery store, and that choice is going to be the produce coming from California, even when it's in season here. So I want to see a stronger emphasis on strengthening regional food systems to shorten food miles and also support farmers, small scale, medium scale farmers on a regional setting. I want to see a food system that doesn't prioritize monoculture, that makes it and supports farmers transition to more sustainable regenerative farming practices and shift away from these large scale monocultures making a bunch of food that is generally animal feed or devoid of any sort of beneficial calorie, right? It's a lot of sugar or soy, and that's not doing anybody any good right now. But it's because of the way the system is structured, it's the obvious thing to do at the moment. So I want to see a food system where you don't have to think about it, right? I don't want everybody doing all of this work every time to have these like ethical quandaries every time they go to the grocery store. But because when I go to the doctor, I trust that the doctor knows what they're doing, and I want to trust the food system knows what it's doing as well. So if I just need to make one choice, I want that choice to automatically be the one that is the best for the planet and the best for the people and the creatures that live on it as well.
Sounds like a good plan.
It would be nice.
Let's work towards this together and take action to this direction. I think with the projects what you're running, you definitely do that already. So Emily, thank you so much for joining me tonight. For the audience who joined us later, we will post this conversation on our IGTV and also on our YouTube channel, so you will be able to watch it from the beginning. And please stay tuned, because the next conversation is in 2 days on Thursday at 8:30 a.m. Central European Time, where we will host another person from another country who is also a former digital bootcamp alumni. So, Emily, thank you again. Have a nice rest of your day.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.